Hey everybody, welcome back to After Wine School. I'm Keith Wallace with Alana Zerby as always. And my God, we have one of the most funniest, uplifting, refreshing episodes I think we've ever done.
Riotous.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Laugh a minute. I can't wait for this. And yes, of course. What am I talking about? Climate change. Of course. Come on. Now, before we even start, let me just this one thing. Yeah, we're going to go into some dark stuff, and this is how this is going to work. We're going to introduce it. We're going to talk about it. It'll be dark. It'll seem hopeless. But at the end, don't worry. Because the thing is about climate change in the wine trade, we already kind of figured it out. We already know what we're doing. Sit back, enjoy this dark ride through a hellscape that ends up being a nice, pretty, like unicorns and sunshine at the end.
No,
Okay?
It's great, Keith, because you're going to get a chance to talk about science and farming, but we are also going to bring it back to some exciting new wine regions that you'll definitely want to hear about.
Absolutely. Because the one thing, let's be honest, winemakers are farmers and farmers are eternal optimists.
Love it.
Absolutely. So, folks, I have a question for you. What happens when Napa Valley and Bordeaux is too hot to grow Cabernet Sauvignon? What happens when England starts making bubbles as good as champagne? It's already happening.
So take us back. Situate us in time. Tell us about the past.
Okay, so when I was a wee little boy, sitting on my father's knee. No, we're going to go even further back than that, surprisingly. Actually, even farther back in time. Let's just talk about the history of wine in general. Wine regions are wine regions because they are stable environments. They're temperate environments, and no matter what, you always knew when it was going to rain. You always knew when the sun was going to be up. You always knew if we're going to get a frost or not. And this is really important because we don't make wine on a daily or hourly basis. We make it in a generational fashion. Let me put this in context. It takes about 5 years to actually grow a vineyard, just to be producing fruit. And it takes a decade, 10 years, for when you can actually have full production where it's actually a mature vineyard. It takes at least 20 years to establish a wine region in general. Like we think in decades, not years. And that's really important. We need that time, and we need to have our climate stable.
Yeah, and we talk about Napa, Bordeaux, Burgundy, sort of our three great iconic wine regions. As my L3 students know, those are all different climate types at heart, but they are all consistent within their own climate. So that really is the golden ticket.
Oh, what are those climates, Alana?
How dare you? You'll have to take the class.
Yep, take the intermediate class. Although I must say, my personal favorite is the maritime climate.
Okay, well, good.
I'm just saying, it's where the best winemakers work. I'm just saying. Anyways, so now, this is not the first time that we've had a climate change. It's not even, by far not the first. So we can go all the way back to the original ice ages, but we're not going to go that far, right? No, we can just go back to the medieval era. And we had a warming era at that point where places that you would not imagine winemaking happening. So as it warmed up, you had England, like I talked about in the beginning. England was becoming a winemaking region. Belgium was making wines even. And, it was a beautiful place in Northern Europe to make wines.
Right, Keith. And then following that medieval period, we had a warm period throughout the Middle Ages where our wine regions reoriented back to Southern Europe and left England and Belgium behind with a beer culture.
And actually, and you had talked about this earlier, was that the fascinating thing was that the yeasts that they were making wine with, they were still there, and in their vineyards. And then when they started making beer instead, they were using the same yeast. That's actually the saison yeast. And actually, apparently, there used to be, some people say one of the reasons why English cuisine is so bad and so boring was that it started at a time when they had far more kinds of fruits and vegetables growing, and then as that mini ice age came, all of it disappeared off the island.
That's a big rationale for haggis. I don't know if I buy it, but okay.
So
sure.
haggis is just God's gift to the humans, and yes,
Spoken like a true Scotsman.
yes. When everyone says, "Would you prefer to have a filet mignon or haggis?" Everyone obviously says haggis.
Obviously.
Okay, even I'm like getting a little sick right there. All right. Okay. So there's been climate change. Like, this is not a new thing. But the difference now is how fast and how extreme it is. Things even just a few years of abrupt changes. And that's huge. That's different. That's the hard truth. Hard truth. But I also should point out at this stage is that this isn't political. Like, I don't care where you think about, climate change and politics or anything like that. Winemakers are farmers. We're farmers. We work on a day-to-day, year by year, decade by decade with the ground. And we see what's changing. And that's it. So as soon as that cork gets opened, or as soon as we crush that fruit, politics are out the window. It's about what's going on in our vineyards. So just keep it there, right? It's just about winemaking. And, what's been happening is that right now, a Napa Cab is usually around 16% alcohol. If we jump back a few years, if we go back to the 80s, the average ABV was 12.5 to 13.5%, largely because we just didn't get as much ripeness. It wasn't as hot in the summers as it is, or in the fall as it is now. And in fact, they could be even higher. One of the things I learned to do is one of the most thing I didn't learn in college at UC Davis did not teach me to do this, but I learned right away is that when you have such overly ripe grapes that we were getting, and even in the early aughts we were getting this, we had to dilute them. We actually had to take out the garden hose, like the food grade garden hose, and actually just put it into the tanks and dilute it. We also had to add a lot of tartaric acid because they were so overripe. There was too much sugar and not enough acid. So we had to. And by the way, this is perfectly legal to do, perfectly ethical before it ferments, right? We're allowed to do that. So that's where we are today.
Right, Keith. And so at 16%, these are really full-bodied, fruit-forward wines. And so consumers' taste are going to adapt. And from the winemaking side, as I understand it, is then you need to pair big oak with those wines. We talked about oak in our episode last week. So if you're interested in a full discourse on oak aging, please check that out. But it's this interesting feedback loop where consumers demand something, winemakers meet that demand, and we have a whole new style of wine.
I know, isn't it interesting? Yeah, climate change has actually changed our preferences, which is weird. If people don't understand what it is, why we have to add more oak when the wines are bigger, it's kind of like if you make a stew. Like if you make a very light broth, you don't want too much seasoning. But if you're making some big monster beef stew that's really thick and rich, and you actually have to add more spices to balance it out so that you can actually taste it.
I really appreciate your food analogies. There was another podcast we did where you were talking about fining and filtering.
Yeah.
And I actually learned how to make a really great consomme from that.
Oh, yeah. No.
So
yeah,
always bring in your food
yeah,
analogies.
I know. It's funny because it always makes more sense because people always understand food, and wine seems so ethereal and so woo-woo, and so people just don't realize, a lot of I can always make analogies. I'm really thankful that before I was a winemaker, I was a chef. That really, it does help. It does help. Now, okay, we're talking about extremes, and but the extremes are much worse than actually just having hotter summers. We've all heard about the fires in California, and those fires are insane. They're devastating, and it's hard, and it's actually is really hard to burn a vineyard because what usually burns is dead wood or dried wood. The fact that you can actually burn a vineyard is insane. These are incredibly hot fires, unlike normal fires that we'd have, which typically happen. These are just insane. But you also have massive flooding in Germany and hail in places like Burgundy. And actually also when I was there a couple of years ago, Sauvignon in Bordeaux, we were battling hail the size of golf balls. It dented my rental car, significantly cost me money, which ticked me off to no end. But it was worse for people there. So what happened was, this was right at harvest. So you had winemakers in Bordeaux just wiped out. Like they lost like 60 to 80% of the fruit. Hail has have that effect. And you think about that, you lost your entire income for an entire year. And that's not just for you, that's for your employees. And that's devastating. That means people are going to lose their jobs. It's even worse than that because hail, like fire, damages vineyards. It damages the vines themselves, and it will take years or decades to recover. And so what happens there is that sometimes you have vineyards, if they're not well capitalized, they're going to go out of business. And they did, and they do. And that now means that there's less wine in the world, but there's also, less jobs. Like those jobs are gone. Somebody who had a lifelong guaranteed job now is unemployed, and that's terrible.
Yeah, and I remember researching for the advanced France class I taught in 2023, which ultimately became part of the online advanced France offering from the National Wine School. So if you're interested in seeing me in action, Keith also has a segment on Bordeaux in that class. Mm-hmm. Highly recommend signing up for it online. But in teaching that class, I did some research, and it was a particularly devastating year in 2023. And the effects on individual winemakers and individual families and estates is quite devastating. So it was tough to talk about.
Yeah. And well, especially for places like Jura. My job in that was to actually be behind the camera, and I was controlling the filming of that. I knew how you had these close personal connections with winemakers in Jura, and you know that they were losing their wineries, that they were leaving the industry. And you absolutely, your love of Jura wines is, absolutely, and for good reason.
Well, you know what, Keith? I didn't even mention it during that class because I couldn't think about it.
Yeah.
It was in a later class.
Wow.
I brought it up in Languedoc because somebody asked about climate change. Yeah. And this brings me to another point I did want to make at some point in our podcast, and I'll say it now. Don't ask winemakers about climate change. It's a very depressing topic, and every winemaker is aware of it. I think 10 years ago, it might have seemed like an insightful, nerdy question to ask. It's not that anymore. I promise you, this is the nadir of our podcast today. This is as low as it's going to get, but it is seriously very devastating. And so areas that have very small yields to begin with, lots of challenges. This has caused many folks to exit. So it has been devastating on micro and macro levels for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And because the truth is that this is new to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And you want to ask questions because you're curious, and that's what this podcast is for. But in the wine trade, we've known about this for decades. We're farmers. We see it happening. We saw it long before. And here's the thing that's been going on. When you ask somebody about climate change, they're like, we've been dealing with this for decades now. There's all this research, all this work we're doing. How can I tell you in just 5 minutes what's going on? It's impossible. It's going up to a professor of mathematics and say, tell me about the theory of everything, right? Tell me about positronic brains. I know that doesn't exist. I know I'm referencing data on Star Trek, but I figured I got to bring it in there. However, there's a front line of winemaking that is massively being hit with climate change. Rioja, Napa Valley, Bordeaux, the Barossa Valley in Australia.
Tuscany.
Yeah, especially on the coast of Tuscany, really feeling the effects of climate change. But they are on the front lines, and here's what you haven't heard. They've been on the front line for decades. What you haven't heard is them retreating. You haven't heard, we're not making Cabernet and Napa anymore. We're not making wines in Bordeaux anymore. No, the front lines are where all the challenges are, and where all the innovation is happening, where all amazing things are being thought of. And because we have researchers, we have universities, we have brilliant people combined with the grit and hard work of farmers and winemakers who have been working on this for decades now. I am so optimistic about what's going on, and that things are changing, but everything is okay.
Let's talk about some of those remedies.
Oh yeah, let's yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
a big one is planting at higher elevations.
Yeah.
So, this is something that the Argentinians have been doing for a very long time.
Hmm.
These guys are pushing their vineyards to over altitudes of 5,000 feet above sea level. Absolutely crazy. So, that is a technique that is being adopted throughout the world. Napa's newest AVA, Crystal Springs, is a higher elevation AVA right outside of Howell Mountain. So, high elevation vineyards, that is a wonderful way to offset some of the effects of a warmer, hotter growing season. Also, some different trellising systems using your canopy to shield your grapes can get you significantly cooler temps during a long, hot growing season. We have cover crops. What else, Keith?
Oh God. Okay. Well, even going like to trellises, they're even just we've actually figured out that actually just raising our vines just by half a foot or so decreases about 0.6 Celsius the internal temperatures of like where the fruit set is, and also it's actually helping protect from frost damage. That's helping. We're also you talked about cover crops. This is the most low key thing and the most brilliant. So what they're doing is that cover crops to compete, and that's forcing the vines not to ripen as fast, which is awesome. Just a simple basic idea, but they're also genetics. Like there are at least 7 teams now, universities and private teams, some funded by private equity, that are working on new root stocks that are drought tolerant, so you can have the same vineyard, same vines, but on different root stocks. And they're like doing this tech stack. It's amazing, like so that they're also resilient to all kinds of other different pests and diseases as well. It's like it's beyond. Yeah, a lot of these are already in trials throughout the world.
Yes.
Yeah, no, there's a lot going on, and it's and some of it, like I know some things right now I can't talk about because NDAs. Like there's things happening in America right now that could completely change the face of wine production. It's absolutely amazing. Absolutely
Serious
amazing.
business when an NDA is involved.
Yeah.
Thank you, Keith. So there's
Yes.
a lot that's happening,
Yeah.
a lot of remedies that are innovative and ongoing.
Yeah, and let's just bring a little something that happened recently. So just in September of 2025, it was like the earliest harvest in Bordeaux ever, right? So they're harvesting earlier, but also at the same time, they're introducing new grape varieties. That was a couple of years ago, including Touriga Nacional, the Portuguese grape. So when I start having those grapes, Touriga Nacional in my Bordeaux, thank you. That's going to be awesome. But also, some wineries are even noping out. So in September 2025, Chateau La Flore, I think it was, they said Bordeaux wasn't going fast enough. So they were like, we're not going to be part of Pomerol anymore. We're not going to be part of the whole AOP of Bordeaux anymore because they're not innovating fast enough. And they specifically were talking about climate change. So they could actually innovate faster. And mind you, they're a famous winery. La Flore is badass. And I like them even more now. They're like, no, we've been growing Cabernet in a year, 2 years from now. We're going to do what we need to do to mitigate problems with climate change. So a lot of things are happening, even in places that people think of like as stuffy as Bordeaux. But actually, Bordeaux is very innovative. It really is, always has been. But yeah, that's what's going on. Yeah.
So those are the sort of stalwart regions. And then we have our regions that are benefiting. So there are some winners in this game as well. Willamette Valley. I was actually thinking of Willamette when you were talking about cover crops a moment ago.
Yes.
It was in Willamette that I first saw cover crops being used. Now, that was a long time ago. They've been doing it for a long time. But I just thought, they love gardening. These are such pretty perennials that they have here. So Willamette has been benefiting from having a longer, warmer growing season. So their Pinot Noirs have never been more silky and elegant and wonderful. Also, Germany. Germany is one of these places. If you're a Pinot fan, they're getting some beautiful vintages of Pinot Noir that in the past, they've always done Pinot Noir, but it's always had trouble ripening. So they're getting beautiful consistency there. And then a sommelier favorite, the Loire Valley. The Loire Valley is benefiting from this as well. So there are places that are sort of reaping the benefits for now.
Germany has been fun to watch because Germany, who had never, they always had to fight towards ripeness. Like it was they had their entire classification system is is just a pilgrimage towards ripeness. Like they always we want ripeness and we never get it. And the funny thing is watching for the last 10 years, I'm trying to figure out how to deal with it now that they have it. Because their Pinots went from like too austere and too green to too ripe. And they've been trying to figure out how to grow, because everything they've ever done was how do we try to get ripeness, which we'll never have. And now they're like, now we have too much of it. What do we do? It's been and now they're killing it. They're killing it. I mean, there are great Rieslings at $15 that you couldn't buy that level of quality for $50 or $100 10 years ago.
You know what? Another place I would put in this category, Tasmania.
Oh, yes. And I will say right now, people, huddle up, come here. Okay, especially you wine importers, why do I not see more wines from Tasmania? Their Pinots are insane. And everyone out there who doesn't, who knows you've never had a Tasmanian wine, if you know anyone in the wine trade, especially any importer, just tell them you don't love them anymore until they bring in Tasmanian wines. More Tasmania, but thank you for that. I know I'm very angry about that. I love Tasmania.
Oh my gosh.
And they're not in the markets. Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, and when you get them, oh my God.
Everyone loves them. Everyone's blown away.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, no, they are great Pinots. Oh my God. And better and better and better with the change.
So Pinot fans, Riesling fans, rejoice.
Yeah, climate change is amazing. Just empty your air conditioners into the sky, people. Let's just go for it. No, I'm joking. Do not cancel me. I drive a hybrid. These are all LED bulbs. Okay, I am joking. Oh my, someone will take that seriously. Someone will clip that. And I'm going to be my God, all right, I guess I've been canceled. But I'm okay with it. I'm okay. And, but there's actually, you're talking about the places that have benefited. There's actually places moving onto the board. At least the first time since the medieval era. Literally, England, insanely great bubbles now. They're far too expensive, but their price points are on par with great champagne for good reason, but my God, they're amazing. Scandi wines. What? There's Scandinavian wines now. And there's also, Patagonia.
Patagonia, yes.
Okay, they actually have been making them for a decade now, but they're insane. And then Canada.
Yes.
Even 10 years ago, they're famous for their ice wines. And when we opened one of our wine schools in Enniskillen, actually, they donated their wines for our opening. Oh my God, that was amazing.
They did.
And yes, oh my God, my diabetes really, really thanks you for that. Canada.
We love you, Canada.
Yeah, I really do.
We have no problems with Canada.
And so, but now they've really, the pride and joy now is they're still great, but it's the Cabernet Francs.
Reds, yeah.
The Pinots.
Yeah.
The little Gamay that I've had from Canada are insanely great. Yeah.
I think they're doing Terrell Dago too.
Yeah, they are, but I haven't had any yet. All right, so this is fantastic. I think we've come full circle.
I feel better.
Yeah.
I feel better.
Yeah, okay. And I hope everyone else there feels better too. Now, I love doing things like this because, tackling hard subjects in a way that people can understand and relate to and understand that it's not the end of the world. We're just innovating. We're moving through it. And what I ask is that if you like wine, love wine, learn more, through us, or even better, get your Smalley certification through the National Wine School. Please sign up, wineschool.us. All I ask. Also, I know I ask more. This podcast is really important to us, and we want as many people to hear it and understand what we're talking about, what we're doing, have some decent, good wine education that isn't stuffy. So if you like and subscribe, that does a huge amount. Tell your friends. The more subscribers, the more, actually, especially on iTunes, they rate 5 stars. Tell them it's the best wine thing you've ever had.
If you're ever in Philadelphia, please come by and see us in action at the Wine School of Philadelphia, where we teach full-time. We teach one-off classes as well as semester-long programs, and we'd love to see you there. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Well, fantastic, folks. Ciao.
Cheers.